Radio. Raheem with Mauricio Sulaiman at a WBC event where you couldn't be more at home. Wilder Ortiz. It's a very interesting rematch. Talk to me, first off, as a boxing fan. I mean, obviously, the WBC is your home and that's your work. But just as a general fan, how do you see this fight?
Oh, very exciting. I was fortunate to be at the first one in New York. It was a tremendous fight. It was very exciting. Ortiz really hurt Wilder, had him very hurt. And then Wilder came back and knocked him out in a tremendous, one of the best heavyweight fights in recent years. So I'm very happy, very excited, and it's going to be a tremendous event.
What do you make of the way Ortiz is looking this week? He seems to have turned back the hands of time.
Well, he's looking very good. He's in shape, he's ready, he looks calm, and he's just eager to get into the ring. So it makes it highly dramatic.
Now, the winner of this fight obviously will be, or continue to be, the WBC heavyweight champion. And in recent days, we've seen Wilder just come out on his own and say that that's enough for him. Like, he doesn't apparently want to be a franchise champion. Does that mean that you pick someone else as a franchise champion in the heavyweight division?
Absolutely not. We do not ask fighters to be franchise champions. There's a very few fighters that are eligible to that designation. And that designation is not a new championship, not a new title. It's simply the possibility of fighters who define an era to go out and continue growing the sport, the industry of boxing. Canelo Alvarez, Lomachenko are two fighters who define this era. Two fighters who fight in different weight categories. Two fighters who are and have great opposition, and they want to take the best fights for the fans. So that's I know there's a lot of buzz about the franchise. It is so important that everyone is talking about it, and basically it will take time for everyone to understand what it is. We in the WBC, we are visionaries, and we look at things to grow the sport and to make it better. So I feel confident. I take all the critics, I take all the blows. I have no issue with that, but I'm confident that it's going to be very good for the sport.
Well, you say maybe people understanding will make it a lot easier for people to accept. Because you're right, there's a lot of people talking about it, but not in a positive way. The problem seems to be that if it's not a new title, if it's not a title you can win in the ring, why does it affect the titles that you have won in the ring? In other words, why would you need to vacate your WBC title?
You don't vacate. The franchise champion is a recognition that is provided and given, and these fighters represent the WBC in all future fights.
So can you explain, or at least clarify, what's happening with the Lomachenko situation, for instance? And it seems that the Canelo situation with Charlo would be the same. So if I'm incorrect, correct me. But it appears that Lomachenko's franchise champion, he vacates the WBC. Now Devin Haney right over there is WBC champion without having fought him. And now Haney doesn't have an opportunity to be mandatory because Lomachenko is a franchise champion. Is that incorrect?
No, he is a champion. So why does he does not need to be mandatory? He is a champion. He can fight Haney, he can fight Lomachenko, he can fight Teofimo Lopez, he can fight whoever he wants.
But now Lomachenko can sidestep him without losing his title, essentially. You know what I mean?
I understand what you say, but it is not. You're looking at one tree instead of the big forest. Canelo Alvarez wanted to fight Mayweather desperately, and we saw what happened. It was not the right time. Had Canelo waited 2 years to fight Mayweather, would have been a much bigger fight. It would have been where he had a much opportunity to be victorious. So, as I say, it's going to take a few moments, a few examples. You have your own opinion. You shake your head. It's your opinion. You're interviewing me or you're judging me.
No, you said that you were willing to take the criticism and answer the critics. They're not my questions that just come from me personally, or even my opinions, certainly. What I do is I read what the audience that covers that watches boxing is saying, and how the fighters complain in interviews when I have them.
I will send you a lot of material to read from others who like it.
Right, but I will
send you Bob Arum's, who is Lomachenko promoter, opinion. I will send you Canelo Alvarez.
But I talk to these guys personally, so you don't have to send them to me. I want to get your firsthand explanation. I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm saying that only you can really explain what you're doing. You're the WBC.
Right.
So when people come to me in an interview and they're like, I don't like this, I don't think this is right, I should be mandatory for Lomachenko, but now I'm not because of this whole franchise thing. The only person that can really explain that is you. With all due respect. Like, there's no, there's nothing personal. I just want people to have an opportunity to either realize they're right or realize they're wrong.
Well, if you concentrate in one example, then you get lost. Let's look at the big picture. Lomachenko can go out and fight in any weight category against other champions, against other great fights that people want to see. Haney can do the same. He's got to build his reputation. He's got to build his career. Canelo can go up to light heavyweight, middleweight, super middleweight. So we're just in a different world, and we're adjusting to the world. And what we want and what we choose is to have the ability of having the graded fights for the fans.
Okay, Mauricio, the mandatory position for a fighter is something that exists so that champions have to give people a shot who've earned it, even by the WBC standards. You designate who's a mandatory and say this guy deserves a shot. If they can hold their title or get even a greater title or a different title like franchise and not face guys who deserve a shot, it's almost like the WBC is giving them a way out of facing their mandatory opponent. So the mandatory opponents are griping, and it appears that the champions are taking advantage of something that's not fair. So what I'm asking for the fans who don't understand and the fighters who are complaining, why is the WBC in a position now to bless a fighter with a championship they don't win in the ring and then give them an opportunity to sidestep a mandatory fighter who deserves a shot?
Well, the WBC is the organization who invented the mandatory rule. We invented the designation of a fighter be the mandatory, so the champion has the obligation to face him. That was done many years ago because fighters were docked 5-6 years. Now, the WBC is adjusting. In 2019, we're today, a rule from 40 years ago. We have a designation of a franchise champion to a fighter who defines the industry, a fighter who is of an era. The fighter has to be of great importance, has to be a proven force in the sport, and these are the characteristics that both Canelo and Lomachenko have. We don't believe that we're doing any disservice to Charlo, who is the WBC middleweight champion, or any disservice to Haney, who is WBC lightweight champion. Haney is 21 years old, has come into the picture very fast. We have supported him since he was an amateur, and we're very proud of him. And he's just a little bit too anxious. He's got a lot of work to do in the sport, and a lot of things to prove, and a lot of success to earn. So, going back, this is not a general rule that will affect the process. To become a mandatory contender, you win a final elimination or you are designated by the Board of Governors as mandatory. The champions have the obligation to face a mandatory once a year, and that's the general rule. We have a new concept, which is franchise. We will see how it works. But at this time, I am certain that we're not doing any disservice or we're not doing any injustice to anyone, and we will see what happens.
And last question on this point, the guys like Haney and Charlo, who are now champions, world champions, they carry the belt, they carry the title, take criticism because they didn't win those championships in the ring. How do you explain that they are true champions if they didn't beat the former champion to attain that title?
You know, Lennox Lewis defeated Razor Ruddock in England. And Riddick Bowe, afraid of Lennox Lewis, threw the belt in the trash because he was a coward. He did not want to face Lennox. So the WBC appointed Lennox Lewis as world champion. And then he fought Tucker in the mandatory. So there's precedent. This is consistent. This is Haney defeated Abdullayev and became interim champion. So when there's no champion, the rule says the interim champion becomes champion. He won the title in the ring against Abdullayev and just defended it. Charlo was the interim champion and he won the title in the ring. And I'm sorry I missed the name who he defeated, but he won in the ring. So he was the interim champion, and ask him if he is proud and honored to be WBC champion or not.
You are correct in that the WBC is doing a lot of innovative things that haven't been done before, and it's going to take some adjustment. The last time we talked about the replay in London, which seemed to work fantastically on the night. Now we've covered the franchise championship. Next, you're on to the doping regulations. Confuse some people there too. So for clarification's sake, obviously this Clenbuterol, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, has become a sticking point for a trending topic, if you will, especially after the Canelo issues. So can you just flatly explain what is the WBC's position now on Clenbuterol testing if you test positive for that substance?
Okay, let me explain a little bit. First, Clenbuterol. It's a substance that is found on beef because illegally they feed them Clenbuterol so they grow and they sell a bigger cow for more money. That's a problem in Mexico. That's a problem in China. It's a national health problem. Clenbuterol is a substance that can be found in tests. In 2011, 109 football players, soccer players, that were in Mexico for a World Cup from all over the world, 109 tested positive out of 200 tests. Okay? Francisco Vargas tested positive 4 years ago. Luis Neri, 3 years ago. Canelo, 2 years ago, for that substance. This June, WADA, who is the World Anti-Doping Association, who is responsible on making the rules of doping. They're the ones who say which substance is illegal, which substance and which level is illegal. They put out a release on June stating the threshold for Clenbuterol. Anything underneath a certain number is just an atypical finding coming from meat contamination. Over that, it's considered a doping to be investigated. So we did not make the rule. It's WADA. They very positively changed it to make justice because it's a fact that there's a problem of doping through the cattle, that you can possibly be found as doping while being innocent.
Obviously, this is the explanation that Canelo gave when he tested positive. Under the new rules of WADA, and now the WADA, now and the regulations that the WBC have accepted, would Canelo have been
exonerated?
Would he have been exonerated?
Under these new parameters, his test would have been a not for consideration. It would have been a negative.
A permissible amount.
Permissible amount justifying a contamination.
So from the WBC's perspective, with these new findings being accepted or these new regulations being accepted as reasonable, can we say that Canelo and the fighters in the past who have tested at that level have been exonerated or pardoned, or can we put an asterisk on their findings?
They should. And there's other substances like meldonium. It's a very Russian area substance. They also changed that threshold, and Povetkin had a horrible situation with that, and they also changed that threshold. So, unfortunately, doping is a reality. Doping is a threat to humanity and sports. and a few who dope and a few who take advantage and cheat hurt the whole vast universe.
And it's such a stigma to get yourself out from under once you've been tested positive, been suspended. In a situation like this, the reason I ask is because they, in comments and whatnot, Canelo never stops having to answer for this cheating thing. Is there some absolution, some way that you can say, now Canelo, from the WBC's perspective, was never a cheater?
Well, he was never a cheater for the WBC. If you recall, when it was announced, we immediately came out explaining what Clenbuterol was. So for the WBC, it was never considered a doping. Francisco Vargas, the same case, we communicated with the California Commission, we investigated, we looked into it, and the fight went on. So we have known Clenbuterol is a health issue since 2010, 2011, and we are very up to date with that matter. So for the WBC, Canelo was never, and we took a lot of heat on that as well, because at that moment we stuck up for him because we know what Clenbuterol is and how it happened and why it happens. He presented receipts of the places he ate. Those on the time when he was tested, he had even a dinner with Bill Clinton. So maybe Bill Clinton, if they had tested him, could have had Clenbuterol.
You think Bill Clinton's a Triple G fan trying to... No, I'm just kidding. So, okay. So, yeah. So now we have some resolution to that. Absolution, the WBC's perspective, that he's not... Because he took take a punishment for that. He was suspended.
Still takes it. Once they label you of something, it takes almost eternity to clean. Yes. Jack Johnson, he has been pardoned, but still some people would not accept it. So it's just a matter of understanding and being confident of what you do. Being confident if you're not guilty, just go like that.
He's been absolved.
He's been absolved. We'll take him to the Pope for a blessing.
And lastly, a doping situation that does not fall under the Clenbuterol issue at all, but does affect the WBC directly in this mandatory issue we've been talking about. Dillian Whyte. It's been also a confusing issue. Eddie Hearn has said that this test was not correct, that everybody knows that this is like a false positive. He's now slated to fight in December. From your standpoint, is Dillian Whyte the mandatory WBC heavyweight for the winner of Ortiz Wilder?
Dillian Whyte is undergoing a process by the law of the United Kingdom, which nobody can overrule. So until the time that process is finished, his status as interim champion and mandatory is suspended until the legal process finishes.
To answer Eddie Hearn and Dillian Whyte most directly, has there been any issue with him being mandatory? He feels like he was mandatory for way too long, never got a shot. Then this came up as a way to keep him from getting a shot. Like, it's very personal. How do you answer that?
I'm a very dear friend of Dillian Whyte. So maybe what he says, it's for media. I was with him. I've been with him. We have gone thoroughly. He challenges our position, not from this matter, but from the past. We have everything documented, and we are not going to go into a you say, I say in a pissing contest. I respect Dillian. I like him very much. I hope his case is cleared and he is able to finally get his WBC championship shot. He's been very loyal. He's been offered fights for other organizations. He says, no, I want the green belt. And we're just doing the process. But we have spoken at length, his people, his promoter, and himself. So everything is good.
So if he is cleared, we can say from the WBC's perspective, he will then be mandatory and get that shot that he's been waiting for, it seems like 3 years now, to get.
The famous 500 days. Yes. That was a good creation. They did good. got a lot of people angry at us, but I'll take it as well. The resolution from the convention, as I say, it's doing the process, the legal process by UCAD. So right now we're waiting. Tyson Fury, if he fights against Wilder in February, that will be the mandatory fight. When Whyte is cleared, then Whyte will be mandatory February 2021. He knows it.
2021.
Yeah, because we're in November 19.
Yeah, that's over a year. I don't know. He's gonna love that one. Okay.
Well, hopefully he gets clear first.
Right. Mauricio Sulaiman, you are a very patient man, very generous with your time.
No,
I know these are not always of the most pleasant topics, but clarification is important, and I appreciate you being willing to clarify.
I appreciate all the questions because that gives us the opportunity to clarify. Of course, I just want to say something. I am not in a popularity contest. I am not here to be the good guy or how nice he says or does. No. We do things and we move boxing. Some things are not liked. Eventually they're liked or not. But we are trying to do our best. When my father changed from 15 to 12 rounds, he was vilified. I mean, it was a horrible moment in our life. But that has proven that it saves so many lives and the quality of life of many. So we're just moving ahead, we're moving forward and trying to do the best for the sport.
We're going to move forward to this Saturday night in Las Vegas at the Grand Garden Arena. Ortiz versus Wilder. Wilder-Ortiz rematch. Going to be a fantastic show for the WBC. Always a pleasure to cover your events, sir. Radio Rahim with Mauricio Sulaiman.